What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I have an email interview with Jay Stafford at the IPDB. To begin, how old are you? He responds, I'm in my late 50s. What was the first game you remember playing? He says, I have a vague recollection of the first game I played. All I recall is that it had to be a Gottlieb one-player with short flippers with the rounded tops on them, and was likely early to mid-1960s. I was 14 and with a new friend who knew I had just returned to the USA from living abroad in an isolated environment for much of the 1960s, so I had not been exposed to many normal conventions of American teenage youth like pinball. We were in a dairy store that had one pinball machine, and he asked me if I wanted to try playing pinball. I indifferently shrugged my shoulders and asked him to go first so I could watch. When it was my turn to play, I was, modesty aside, pretty dang good at flipping and playing, and he was wide-eyed and practically shocked at me, especially since I did better than he. I started playing more pinball after that, and that's when the bug bit me. Two of the earliest games I recall playing, and that I can recall the names, are Bally's 1964 Bullfight and 1966 Bazaar. What is your favorite game? It's hard for me to pick just one favorite game. I really like Gottlieb's 1965 Skyline and 1965 Ice Review, Bally's 1979 Star Trek and 81 8-Ball Deluxe, and Williams' 1965 Alpine Club. What was the first game you owned, and how old were you when you purchased or were given it? At age 15, I purchased Gottlieb's 1959 7Cs with money I earned from my paper route. It was my first pinball and I still own it, my sentimental favorite. You don't see too many, if ever. I told Wayne Nyans, its designer, that when I bought it, who would have ever guessed that someday I would meet and know the man who designed it? Have you ever played a bingo? If so, what did you like about it? Yes, I've played a number of bingos, but I really do not encounter them that much. I own one bingo, Bally's 1956 Nightclub. That's a good choice, by the way. But it always seemed to go on the blink, and finally I put it in storage. I'm not drawn to bingos, although I'll play them. But to me the biggest action on bingos happens before you shoot the first ball, as you coin for the features. Kind of like an intellectual pursuit, that initial coining over and over, followed by a comparatively anticlimactic shooting of the balls. A bit like playing Bally's Spectrum. Do you like to repair or restore machines? If so, what's your favorite era or manufacturer to work on? He responds, I don't restore games, and most of mine are really nice anyway, or nice enough. The rest of them, I'm content with their aged look. I'm just a collector/player, but not a showroom collector. I'll repair the EM ones as needed, but they seem so sturdy that really all I ever have to do is tighten a loose bell in the back box or something, or replace a broken drop target. I can repair my EM games of the 50s through the 70s with pretty much an equal enthusiasm. My next question is 2-inch flippers or 3-inch flippers? He responds, either 2-inch or 3-inch flippers is fine by me, but I have to say that after playing a stretch of 3-inch flipper games, it can make a difference which 2-inch flipper game I next walk up to play, because that is when I most notice the differences in flipper efficiency between one 2-inch flipper game and the next. And then don't forget those 2-inch impulse flippers of older games which simply do not compare to the 3-inch flippers, or even to non-impulse 2-inch flippers. I note that you have photo credits on the IPDB on several older machines. What attracts you to them? The photo credits you see on the IPDB with my name under them often do not reflect a personal interest in the game being photographed, but instead reflect my desire to populate the IPDB with images of games that I see when out and about. That said, I find pre-flipper games can be quite interesting in terms of any unique or creative features they may possess, and the position of those features in the historical timeline. My next question, how did you get involved with the IPDB, IPSNDB? Back in the early 1980s, pre-internet and pre-IPDB, I bought a PC clone and DBase 3 software and started to document every commercial pinball machine I could find. This lasted until 1987 when other priorities in life took over. That and the horrible upgrade from DBase 3 to DBase 4, which seemed to turn everybody away from Ashton Tate, including me. So I dropped the project and dropped computers altogether. In 2001, I decided to buy a new computer and investigate this internet thing, whereupon I stumbled upon two pivotal websites. The first one was the Pinball Pasture website, and two of its subsites, the Serial Number Database and the Internet Pinball Database, aka the IPD. The IPD had practically no images, maybe one image a listing if any. The second pivotal website was eBay, where sellers of pinball machines naturally showed many photos of their games. A light bulb went off in my head, and I wondered how I could get the boatload of eBay pinball images over to the IPD. Not everyone realizes that a photographic composition is an automatically copyrighted thing, at least in the USA. In spring 2002, I contacted the IPD, which had just been taken over by Christopher Wolf from the previous folks who, understandably, went on to other things in their lives. Wolf changed the URL to what it is today, the IPDB, and he and I worked out a system and a set of protocols by which I could legitimately bring copyrighted images to the IPDB with an explanation, and not just have the website be a receptacle of unexplained images replicated, or swiped, from other websites and possibly get in trouble with those website owners and any copyright holders. We inherited about 3,000 images from the IPD, and today we have over 62,000 images. I'm a guest editor on the IPSND, the Internet Pinball Serial Number Database, which is a separate website from the IPDB, and whose webmaster is Jess Askey. I can't sing enough praises about Jess and the IPSND, as that website collects information to form an historical picture of the games in terms of how many are surviving and how many games were made before and after any production changes that were made to the playfield, backglass, and or cabinet. I refer to his website a lot. How many folks work with you on the IPDB maintenance? When I joined the IPDB team in 2002, which itself was brand new in 2002, it was Wolf, Frank Laughlin, and me. Frank had carried over from the original IPD as editor, but has since retired, so it's now just Wolf and me. Wolf is the webmaster who keeps the site up and running and also writes the scripts for it, and I provide content and interface with our users and their submissions. Wolf also handles the rating section of the site. What can any pinball collector do to help the IPDB? I'm really thankful that you asked this question. As most of our users know, the IPDB wants to show games only as they came from the manufacturers. This means we do not show repainted or reproduction cabinets, playfields, or backglasses, even if identical looking. We also do not feature reproduction playfield parts. For many years, I've been in a quiet race against time, trying to photo-document pinball games in their original factory condition before they get so old and worn that the only way to save them is to add these reproduction items to them. If you think about it and take the long view, it's just a matter of time before it's no longer practical to maintain a distinction between original condition or restored game. Eventually, we old-timers and we pinball romanticists will lose our voice about original condition because there simply will be so many games brought back to life with repainting and repro parts that the newer folks in the hobby won't be able to care or can't be able to carry on this original condition theology to a practical degree. Also, the volume of talent in the hobby to restore games increases every year, so this too is a factor in the race. In addition, I don't know every game intimately, and I do not keep up with the increasing availability of after-factory parts, the so-called mods that we exclude from the IPDB. Even changing the LED color scheme in a game to something other than what the factory would do is an after-factory modification. So the one thing I would ask our users to help me with, the one thing I cannot actually do all myself, is to continue to identify for me when pinball machines for which they are familiar have been repainted or have reproduction parts or have these modifications performed on them. If our users see images on the IPDB that do not represent factory-issued product, I ask to hear about it. If users can be very mindful to only submit to us game images that do not have any of these after-factory changes, then that would be excellent. We want the IPDB to be viewed 20 years from now in the same way as today, as a record of pinball machines as they came from the manufacturers. Lastly, I just wanted to thank Jay Stafford and everyone at the IPDB for their invaluable service to the collector community. I reference the IPDB daily to read new schematics or verify artwork and mechanisms, so I very much appreciate the fact that this resource exists. I will also note that the IPDB has a PayPal donation system, and if you use the IPDB as much as I do, then I would highly suggest that you go online and shoot them a buck or two. Anything helps. But even without donating, this resource, which is invaluable, is available for anyone to use. And thank you for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, and you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at nbaldridge, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.